whatever your peers are going to say now. Okay, so yes, what about others? What all things did we discuss in the last class? Hmm?
Underlying fabrics.
Yes, underlying fabrics. Yes, underlying fabrics, different types of underlying fabrics like interlining, interfacing, lining, right? Now, I hope you all are thorough with underlying fabrics. Any doubts? No, I guess. Okay. So next, which was the next topic that we discussed in the last class? We did,
Fabric preparation.
sorry?
Fabric preparation.
Fabric preparation. Yes, we talked about grain line, we talked about selvage, right? So yes, grain line. Yes, tell me about grain lines.
It is a direction to keep a pattern and cut it.
Yes, it is the direction, right? Yes. So if it is parallel to selvage,
Straight grain line.
yes, straight grain line. What if it is perpendicular to selvage?
Crosswise grain.
Yes, crosswise. Then the next one is diagonal, right? Yes. So these are the three grain lines, and these grain lines will be marked on the patterns that we develop. So each and every jobs or divisions will be carried out by a particular department, right? So if you are a designer, you will not be the one who will be developing patterns. Patterns will be developed by, if you're working in an industry, each and every jobs will be assigned to a particular team. Okay, there will be a set of patterns, and from that they will develop different sizes. So suppose if you are having small size with you, okay, you're having small size basic patterns with you. And now, according to your design, according to the order you receive, you're supposed to create large, okay, a basic bodies or basic bodies top of large size. So the process of converting, the process of deriving larger or smaller size from a particular pattern is called grading. Okay, the process is called grading. So suppose if you are having small size pattern with you and you are supposed to create one large size, then the process of converting the small size into a large size pattern, you don't have to redraw the pattern again. You don't have to construct an entirely new one. You just, using the method called grading, you can just derive larger pattern from it. Okay, so this process will be carried out by the CAD department or the pattern development department. The fabrics will be cut by a particular group of people. The fabric will be sourced by a particular group of people. The design and everything will be supervised and finalized by the designer. So each and every step or stages will be supervised and will be carried out under different departments. Okay, under different departments, right? So we might know, we are the designers, right? We are the designers. So we know what kind of garment we want. And based on our design, we know how we are supposed to cut the pattern, how we are supposed to cut the fabric, whether it should be straight, whether the fabric should be cut diagonally, whether the fabric should be cut cross. We know as a designer, it's our design. We might know how to cut the fabric. But the person who's going to cut that particular pattern or fabric in an industry will not know it, right? So all the basic informations that we want them to know while cutting up piece of fabric will all be written on that particular pattern. So the pattern will consist of informations like grain line, style number, date of construction, notch marks, seam width, seam length, everything. Okay. All the informations will be there on that particular part. Okay. So in the last class, we stopped with pre-shrinking, right? We didn't get enough time to explain this particular thing called pre-shrinking. But before discussing pre-shrinking, we discussed something called blocking of off-grain fabric. Am I right? Blocking of off-grain fabric. So what does mean by off-grain fabric? We know what is grain line, right? What is off-grain fabric? We watched a video on it. I showed you, I demonstrated it to you. So what is off-grain fabric?
Grain line is not perfect for off grain.
Yes, grain line will not be perfect when it comes to offline fabric. So if it is a perfectly cut fabric or a perfect fabric, then we know we will be able to fold it perfectly, right? All the edges will meet perfectly. But when it comes to offline fabric, there will be some extra part protruding outside, right? Just like this one, right? Hmm? So some extra will be there. So that is off grain fabric. The grain lines will not be perfect. So blocking of off grain fabric means correcting those off grains. Okay, correcting that. Correcting the grain line of a particular fabric is called blocking. And now we are going to watch a video about pre-shrinking. You know what is pre-shrinking, and pre-shrinking can be different for different fabrics. The grade can be different for different fabrics. And with an example of Pakistani cotton, I explained it to you, right? Hmm? So it is always if the a particular fabric has a tendency to shrink after washing, then it is always good to pre-wash it, or the process is called pre-shrinking. Okay, before constructing it into a piece of garment, it is always good to pre-shrink a fabric so that there will be no problem afterwards, right? Hmm. So woolen fabrics, woolen fibers also have this tendency of shrinking once it comes in contact with water. So we always avoid that kind of things when it comes to sweatshirts, woolen sweatshirt, the original one, okay, woolen sweatshirts and everything. So yes, now we will watch a video, a short video. So just tell me what you understood from this video. Whatever you understood, just tell me. So pre-shrinking is required for which all fabrics? Of course, she haven't explained everything, but yes. You guys watch the video right now, yes? So I want you to tell me.
Natural fabric.
Yes, for natural fabric, pre-shrinking is required, whereas for man-made fabrics like polyester, rayon, etc., pre-shrinking is not required, right? But when it comes to natural fabrics like cotton, when it comes to natural fabric like woolen, linen, etc., pre-shrinking is required. Why it is required? Why pre-shrinking is required when it comes to natural fabrics? Why? Why are we supposed to pre-shrink it before constructing or before manufacturing a piece of garment out of these fabrics? What good will it do? Hmm? Yes?
They shrink after wash. So before stitching itself, we shrink.
Yes. So that will be very good, right? So once the stitching is done and once we wash it, as I said in the last class, you will be wearing, you might be wearing, or you will be wearing, or you will be stitching a garment which is of medium size. So as she explained in the video, the shrinkage of a cotton fabric is 3%. Okay. 3 to 7%. The shrinkage of cotton fabric is 3 to 7%. So when you wash it, once you after stitching a piece of garment, after stitching a salwar, kurti, or after stitching a shirt, if you or a tunic, if you wash it afterwards, then it will shrink, right? Of course, cotton will shrink. So once it shrinks, then if your size was, if your bust around was 32 inches, and it might vary and it might become 31 or 30 inches. Okay. So it is always good to calculate the shrinkage and wash the fabric in the beginning itself and let it shrink how much it wants, and then we can just stitch it. So that we will not be worried. Later, we don't have to worry about the shrinkage, right? So it's done. The shrinkage is done. Once it's washed, it shrinked, right? The 1 and 2 inches that we were expecting for this particular garment to shrink, it's done, right? Now we can just peacefully cut it and stitch it into a garment. Am I right? So we don't have to worry about those size variations and everything. And another problem with these cotton fabrics, these natural fabrics and everything is that when it comes to cotton, when it comes to linen, they are lightweight fabric. Am I right? They are lightweight fabric, and it will be really good if we can. And and another problem is that if we don't use lining along with them, the fabric or that particular garment will get spoiled very fast. So in order to make it long lasting, that particular garment to last long, it will be really good if we use lining along with the main fabric. Okay. Have you ever observed this? A kurti which doesn't have a lining fabric, which just is having that main fabric, which is just made of that main fabric without any lining fabric, tends to last less. Okay. And the one with a lining fabric lasts long because it is having a support. It is having support and it tends to last long. Okay. And apart from that, as we use lining fabric, yes, of course, we will not be using a fabric which is of the same quality. We will be using a lesser quality fabric when it comes to normal kurtis and all. When it comes to expensive garments, when it comes to silk garments and all, we will be using expensive lining fabrics in order to give that perfect finish, right? But when it comes to cotton, we will be using a lesser quality cotton as a lining, right? Am I right? So that lining will also have the tendency to shrink or maybe expand. Okay, the lining may expand or the lining may shrink. So it is always good to choose something which is having similar kind of property. Okay, so what if the lining is not washed, the lining is cotton, and what if you forgot to wash the lining fabric? Then once the garment is stitched, it will shrink. So it will distort the look, right? Am I right? So that is the same when the main fabric shrinks also, and the lining fabric doesn't shrink. So it will just come out of your, it will just see out of your main fabric, which is very awkward, right? Am I right? It's not good to see your lining out, right? That is not how a good garment is supposed to look like. So yes, so pre-shrinking is very good when it comes to natural fabric. So you are supposed to pre-shrink natural fabrics, and when it comes to wool, as I said, the shrinkage is really high. If we dip it in a bucket of water, the shrinkage is really high. Okay, so the large sized woolen sweater might go to a size extra small or a baby one. It might shrink like that. So it is always better to dry clean woolen clothes or woolen sweaters. Okay. It's not like the acrylic ones that we buy. Okay. So when it comes to original woolen, then dry cleaning is far better than washing it with water. Okay. And the next thing, You now know pre-shrinking and the guidelines about it. And now we will be watching another video. How to identify the right, let's just discuss it first, then we will watch the video. So how to identify the right and wrong side of the fabric. How to identify right and wrong side of the fabric. How to identify the right and wrong side of a fabric. Any guess, any idea about it? As you know, there will be woven fabric, there will be woven pattern fabric. Patterns can be woven into the fabric, right? Using jacquard loom and everything. Complicated, intricate patterns can be woven into the fabric. Apart from that, patterns can be printed onto the fabric. Using embroidery stitches, we can later stitch it on, right? Then will be sequence worked will be there. Different types of fabric will be there. And in some cases, both the inside and outside of the fabric will look similar. But there will be some different, but it will be difficult to understand which is the good one, which is the right one, as there will be no much difference. Okay, so how to understand the right side and wrong side of a fabric? So I will just show you my shawl, okay? So this is the right side. So the one I'm wearing, this is a brocade shawl. Okay, so this is the right side. So that's why I'm wearing it like this, right? So this is the right side of this particular brocade fabric. Okay, so now this is the right side, and now I'm going to show the inside or the wrong side. Okay, so this is a woven, this is not printed, this is a woven brocade shawl, or you can say a woven brocade fabric. Okay, so this is the outside of this particular shawl, this is the right side. You can just see the patterns, right? Nothing protruding outside, it just looks perfect. Am I right? So now I'm going to show you the inside. Okay, this is the inside. This is the right side. And this is the inside. You can see this small yarns protruding outside. Am I right? These yarns are protruding outside. So those are the yarns which was used when to create these patterns when the weaver was weaving it. Okay, so this is a brocade shawl, and most of the silk saris will also be having brocade saris will be having this kind of thing, and some will not have. Okay, so the yarns will be there. Instead of cutting, the yarns will be just simply there, binded together. So yes, so this is a woven fabric, and we can easily understand the right side and wrong side of the fabric because of these yarns protruding outside, and because of the perfection. This side is perfect, right? The design is perfectly evident. It looks perfect. It looks shiny. It looks smooth. Whereas here, the design is not perfect. I know you cannot see it clearly, but the design is not perfect. There is these yarns protruding outside, right? So it's not perfect. But here, the design is perfectly visible. So we can just easily understand. When it comes to brocade and everything, we can just easily recognize the right and wrong side of a fabric. Okay. I will just show you this piece of fabric. Not piece of fabric, this piece of paper. Okay. So just suppose this side and this side, it just looks similar, right? It just looks similar. Am I right? We don't know which one is the right side, which one is the wrong side. And it's the same, just like this, same goes with certain fabrics also. When it comes to silk fabrics, when it comes to plain silk fabric, it is very difficult to identify which is the right side and which is the wrong side. There will be very minute difference between the right side and wrong side when it comes to plain silk fabric. When it comes to patterned or woven woven patterned silk fabric, then just because of this patterns and everything, we can easily recognize which is the wrong side and right side. But when it comes to plain silk sarees, plain silk fabric, it is very difficult to identify which is the right fabric and which is the wrong side. Okay, so once I bought this when I was doing my UG. Okay, we need a lot of fabric. We need a lot of fabric. So when we go for shopping and everything, we will just buy a lot of fabric so that we can just use it later. We don't know whether we are going to use it or not, but we will just buy these fabrics that we like. Okay, whenever we go for sourcing and everything, we will just use to purchase these fabric swatches that is available in the market, which we found interesting. Okay, these interesting ones. So once I bought a lot of silk swatches. Okay, so when I went to Ernakulam, so I just brought a bunch of fabric, which is like a color variation of one. So orange is there, blue green is there, but the wrong side, I found the wrong side more interesting than the right side. I don't know, still I don't know which one is the right side, because I found the other side really interesting. Because the wrong side of that particular fabric was having a double shape. Okay, so if you stand here and look at it, it will be green, and if you stand on the right side and look at it, it will be blue. So because of those warp and west yarns, so the warp yarns might be blue and the west yarns might be green to create that shiny, lustrous blue-green effect. Two types of yarns, two colored yarns were used for manufacturing, for creating that particular piece of fabric. So in the right side, it really gives a beautiful, perfect finish. But in the wrong side, it is like duality. It's playing a dual role. So if you look like this, just because the light falls in this way, it will appear as a blue shade. And if you just turn it and look, it will be green, a shiny green, a golden one. Okay. So sometimes these fabrics can be used in both the sides. Wrong side will be more interesting than the right side, but it is necessary to understand right and wrong side, because why? You will be cutting patterns. For the front side you will be cutting, for the back side you will be cutting, right? If it is a front open one, then front right side and front left side you will be cutting. Am I right? So what if you cut the pattern, you cut the fabric for right side pattern in the right side of the fabric, in the case of these double shaded fabric. Okay, so you cut it the right side in the right side itself, but when it comes to the left side, you got confused and accidentally you cutted it in the wrong side. So what will happen? It will look different, right? Just the same garment, but it will look different. Am I right? Am I right? So you should make sure when it comes to fur also, fur or velvet fabric also, it is very necessary to understand which is the right side and which is the wrong side, as the direction matters a lot. Okay. So it is very necessary to understand the right and wrong side of the fabric when it comes to garment manufacturing. Sometimes it will be a patterned garment with head or tails or something. So here, this side, the pattern will be upright, or sometimes just because of your carelessness, in this side, the pattern will be upside down. So which is not a good thing, right? So the direction matters, the side matters, because in some cases, the right side will be having much clear prints, much clear patterns, much better finish, much shining and everything compared to the wrong side. So it is very necessary to understand the right and wrong side of a fabric when it comes to professional garment making. Okay. So now we will